Welcome to Grit and Gravitas with Ann and Annie, bringing you savvy, spirited stories of success. We're excited to deliver 30 minutes of inspiration, impact, and goodness. We'll be bringing you guests and friends from around the country who have very special work and personal journeys. I'm Ann Deeter Gallaher, your co-host with Annie Carnathan, and this is Grit and Gravitas. Let's go! All right, Annie Carnathan, here we are back in the Grit and Gravitas recording studio at the world headquarters of Deeter Gallaher Group.
In Camp Hill, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
With pride.
And with listeners from around the world.
Around the world. International Women's Day every day.
Yep.
At Grit and Gravitas. Never short on hot topics, hot takes.
That are not planned, okay, listening audience. These are not pre-planned. So Annie Carnathan loves taking us in circuitous routes. So I'm excited to hear the depth of what we're going to talk about.
I re-listen to our podcast as much as I don't necessarily. We're our toughest judges.
Yes.
And what I've done now as I go through them again is sort of say, this isn't really about you. It's what these women are saying. And of course we take this personally. We wish we didn't in terms of how we judge and rate ourselves.
Yes.
We're very difficult on ourselves. No one's more difficult on me than me. And Crystal Turner-Childs, I said to her at one point,
was she not a woman in her year?
I told you I had like
she was a bad,
I had a crush on her by the end of the show, and I was staring at her, but to take that in as a sponge, and what you and I have to do is say, if we were listeners, why do people care? Why are they giving us their time, non-renewable, and what are we offering to them? And when you look at the stature of her professionally, staggering. You could say, oh, it's a men's business. This is what isn't, basically, in huge
Pennsylvania State Police
context. Yes. And woof. But the fitness part, her journey, and now solely sort of like you and I, just to help other women. Right. And when I say to her, Crystal, is this your side hustle? Doesn't skip a beat, says it's our side. It's my side passion. That will forever alter me. The way I look at this. This isn't your and I's side hustle.
Right.
It's our passion. And we share it. It burns brightly. And if anything, these women have energized me. You've energized me. And literally, I'll never forget looking at her. I'll never forget saying what I said here. And I was like, whew, what is your passion? And work is a third of your life, but it's half of your waking hours.
Wow. I know. I've seen those statistics, if we add up how much time we spend in the office versus at home.
Boy.
Yeah.
Well, until now, at least for
right.
I mean, for us.
In the last year.
No, we're not back yet. Yes. It's going to be a year next week. And it brought me to, the last show we had a huge sort of issue with priorities and guilt.
And stay at home or go to work after children. Big life decisions. And we encouraged women to be more graceful with ourselves and with other women.
And the priority has stuck with me for my entire career. And when I look out, if there's a commonality for what women say to me is, how do you do that? What I do really well is say no.
I need to spend more time with you, clearly, because I'm here. So this will be a good conversation on learning to say no or how to say no, because I don't do that very well.
Say no or say no well?
Say no. I don't do that well. I need to say no more often. That would be in the workplace and in my choices outside of work where I spend my time. And I think it's out of a desire to be helpful and thinking that I can add value, but we clearly can't add value 24 hours a day. There's not enough time.
Back to priorities. To me, foundationally, there are going to be tenets that are in my bones that I wouldn't have a work day without them.
Right.
And when and look, it's a lot of women's struggles about, let's just say the boss is out of bounds in terms of what they're requiring for the job. It could be a board seat. It could be a project you want me to do that after this I'm going to say, and here's all the reasons I'm not going to do this. But the bottom line is women, and we get to generalize because we are women, have just such a higher threshold to me of saying no than men. And again, I don't want, it to be an us versus them. But I've had women tell me, you say no like a man, and don't you feel badly? Don't you feel this? Don't you feel that? No, because I have priorities.
Right.
And I'm not willing to come off that to please someone else.
Well, that's key. And saying no means you're saying yes to something else. That means there's more time in your day for client A, or more time in your day to work with your team and prepare them, for a big pitch or a big meeting, or more time in your day for Robin Walker.
And it's interesting you say that, because as a leader, there are a lot of micromanagers. I never wanted to be micromanaged, as for obvious reasons. I'm Taz running around. And it's interesting to me how that's born out of saying to your team, hey, guess what? You have to figure that out. You have to do that.
But what a great learning experience for them. What a great leader. What a great CEO you are that you're able to do that. Again, go back to the micromanagement. I think the super successful CEOs are not micromanagers. That's what they hired this extremely talented team to do, and to figure it out.
To keep pulling that string. The leaders running the departments, the MBUs, the managed business units will say, well, I can do that better. Well, yeah, that's why you're where you are.
Right.
And that's why you're a coach and mentor for women. Oh, by the way, you're not going to get to move up until they're ready to replace you.
Yeah.
So there's this symbiotic relationship. I don't marvel. I understand it now. Why there's this intense struggle with women and no. And you look at being a nurturer. Mm-hmm. You look at wanting to please people, which is the whole social media genre, which is your business. Mm-hmm. And I never saw the relationship be cruel. Did I say no in a cruel way?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So what is the cadence of that ability to say it's no, and here's why?
But you know what your priorities are. Back to our prior episode. You already have a mental list of what really matters to you. So it's easier when we wake up with everything's a priority, or I want to excel at A to Z. It's impossible. You have a very clear vision of, family, universal, faith, not in that particular order, but you know what the top 3 things are to you. And you're, I'm going to take lessons from you, able to say no to things. So I've reached a point, especially with my service work, nonprofit work, that I will invest my time and my influence, if you would, bring along the people that are in my orbit for specific organizations that meet my priorities. So food insecurity and children are the top 2. Does it have to do with children? Now, there are a host of fabulous charities out there. And some of them, I leave a spot for others who would be better to serve in those seats. I can't serve in every seat. And I've been, asked on several different boards, but you have to, back to the passion project, you have to serve and invest where you feel deeply about it. And that's not every position, and it may not be a position now, like in your case. You're going to have time for a charity passion project after Walker goes to school, and if you choose to invest your time in those areas.
100%, and with peace and love.
Yeah.
Here's sort of the end of that when he isn't, when he's at college and he's not home anymore. Well, that's a distinctly different priority then. And what I've found, who's talk about a lot about COVID and the pandemic, and I moved me up. Someone
what
will
a great
say
line.
To me,
okay, there.
Okay. So,
that's the business vitamin, especially now. Move yourself up. We can't be number 10 on that list because there's no, you have to be healthy. You have to be mentally sound. You have to set your priorities. You can't have yourself as number 10.
Someone said to me the other week, well, I see what you're doing for everybody else, but what are you doing for you? And something that simple, because I'm someone that has never had a problem saying no. Think about the women, the untold amount of women who absolutely do. And it was one of the most difficult things about the pandemic, and I think it accelerated me saying to my leaders, you have to figure this out. First of all, you have to figure out what happens if it's not me, and who knows when that would be. I mean, you have to have a backup. No one can see you out on vacation. You need to take the vacation. Get out of here. Stop it. That we're not sort of going from A to B to the capacity.
What I like about that is we have tended in the last 50 years or maybe longer, glorified this overworking
workaholic
mentality.
Yes.
I think here we go again with COVID or just a change in mindset that's not really, you can't give 100% and sustain that. It's like overworking means you're detracting time, either, just downtime to be creative and to have your mind relax and think of other things. Plan a vacation, spend time with your family and children. So I don't think, I think there's less glorification of that kind of tireless work ethic.
For who, for what? And if you look at the intentional part of no, to me, it's not entirely clinical, but it's like, I can't adhere to these priorities.
Right.
If I'm just sort of, and then I don't feel good to your point in the other show about anything. Because I'm sort of whiplashed and I can't really figure out what that no looks like. And my point now, and we talk about, when I see two people at a meal out and they're both on their phones, I'm like, oh, and I think that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But
that's about 5 episodes that we could talk about that.
And when I'm with you, I'm with you. And when I'm with Colin or Mark or, or Sean or Kyle, I'm with them. And I think what Zoom has enabled us to do is multitask. Well, if I was in a meeting with you physically, would you be doing the same things? So I'm all about quality over quantity. There are people that when we pick up the phone and we haven't talked for 6 weeks, it's like we're just continuing the last sentence. So for me, not high maintenance. I feel the way I feel, and I don't have any issue saying no. I've learned a lot about how to say that. And if I can't be on a board or I can't contribute that non-renewable time in a meaningful way, I'm not there to be a hood ornament. I'm not there as a car drives down the road and I'm part of what the make and model is. I have
fill a LinkedIn list of I serve here, 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 and here. Right.
People did tell me the other day there are things called, I do know this, right? It's our business or whatever, but they buy bots all the time. And, right? And I'm thinking, okay, that's like great, But so So that's their decision. And I stay in my lane. I try really hard not to judge anything. I try to stay in my lane. If they ask, I have a contribution. But I've just learned that everyone is operating, from their own position when it comes to no. I just know fully it's a very, very difficult word for women.
Yes, I think as women ascend, if you aspire to any kind of leadership position, I think a large majority of us feel compelled that we have to say yes to everything, put ourselves way down on the list, put our families way down on the list, because we have to run faster, jump higher to make it there. And I don't think, in retrospect, I've seen that that's not true. In my own career, I've seen that's not true. But I'd like to revisit your point on moving yourself up and being present. One of my older brothers said, Anne, be where your feet are.
Be what you're about. That's sensational.
So wherever you are, if you're on the golf course, stop checking your phone. If you are even at home at dinner, make sure the phone is somewhere else. It robs us. It robs us of conversation. It robs us of insights from our family. And I've seen it a million times at dinner, as you just mentioned, of where all the children will have maybe headphones on and on their device while the parents are on their device at a dinner table.
My men, no, I'm not making dinner to sit here as an afterthought. No devices, no anything. And if you want to do that, you don't need me to eat dinner. I mean, it's a huge effort to make dinner. And a sneaky thing happened during COVID. Yes. I was scared. What was the future of the company?
Right.
How do we stabilize the employees? How do they juggle all the things now that home is? Mm-hmm. A teacher's, and what happened? By all those yeses, what happened? All the no's started to push me down further and further because I wasn't saying them. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I looked up and wait a minute. A, I can't sustain this. B, I don't want to.
Right.
And how do I, now that I've said you have to figure this out as necessity, holy cow, you look up, company's fine. And look what they've learned. And so I'm fascinated by that. It's what happened while I was making other plans and had spent really a lot of time saying, no, here are my priorities. That doesn't fit with the priority. But only in retrospect am I able to see that. And probably this show am I really able to see that. And I think that's a huge part of taking time for me.
Yeah.
I didn't feel well mentally. I didn't feel well physically. I just wasn't who I had always been. And what were the factors in that? But most importantly, how do I fix that?
You touched a little bit on when you're in Zoom meetings. And I've done a presentation on your best virtual self. And I actually just was reached out by a major company to do another presentation to a group of scientists they're in R&D on your best virtual self, because they're not returning to most of them are not returning to the office.
Look at you, ADG. That's spectacular.
Well, since I'm married to a chemist, so I kind of feel the last 40 years here, I know how they think. But in my original presentation, I said, always have the video cam on. To your point about multitasking, when we go dark like that, we can check the email,
it's all for one for all to me. If we're all going to be on, we're all on. If we're not on, then it's a phone call. That's a whole other thing.
But the Zoom world has caused many of us to relax our standards, where you're on a meeting. I know this has happened to you. It's happened to me many times, where the person will say, sorry, I didn't get to take a shower yet. Well, seriously, would you say that if you just walked in the office? Would you say anything? And I said, remember, some of your leadership is on the Zoom call, and promotions will be coming. And even on Zoom or Microsoft Teams, you want to present your best virtual self. So you are first in line when they're thinking, we have this position. Who would you like to recommend? Who really in your mind has just really presented their best self? And I feel Zoom is not an excuse for us to bring less than our best self to the workplace.
And that brings up a fail. And it just happened Monday. When you say, hey, huge opportunity, talk about Women's, International Day, and I'm prepared, but I'm not this. Going in.
Because media interviews now are many times by Zoom. And that's a different world.
And here's where I'm such a realist. Zero excuses. It came up and down. That's a big meeting for us that day to get off the ground. Yeah. I want to say yes. I'm going to make this work. And the next thing I know, I'm watching it. I'm like, oh my God.
So
Rob's like, you're not lit from behind. There's so much light. I'm like, no, I just look poorly.
Go back to your own worst critic. You didn't look poorly.
No, I didn't look like this though. And that's how I look on any given day. This is how I look. And it was a reminder to me, I have to look that way because you don't know when you're going to jump on a video call. Exactly. You don't know when that opportunity came up. Exactly. And I'm representing a company. And I was really disappointed in me. And I have to tell you though, too, I never gave it a thought. So guess what? There can't be any thinking around that. You have to look this way every time. And thank God the professional picture was up, right? That's how I look. But it just was, and it isn't vanity. It isn't, women and the perfection, but I just didn't have that effort. And
plus it's a Zoom. And I think that was your first Zoom interview. Excuse me. These are different times, but to your point, I tell every single client, I would love to give you a week runway and say, this is when this is when you're scheduled to be on the evening news. This is when the spot's going to run and we'll work for the whole week on your talking points. That does not happen. In the last year for this environment, so many clients have such great stories of how they pivoted, and Universal being one of them. How are you managing this 50-person workforce and still providing the clients with 110% of you and your strategies and your media insights? But I say you have to wake up every day. I mean, it sounds cute when you say, "Oh, I'm in my yoga pants." Not so cute, because I may need you. I may need to have you meet me at your office where the camera's going to show up. And then the iPhones are going and the news station is going. And I need you to look like the executive that you are.
Yeah. And so I think it's important to say, okay, how do I deal with that? Because there's still fails to happen every week, right, every day. Right. I would do it differently. I've learned now, and I'm going to move on. There's nothing I can do to go back and say, but the other part is never gave it a single thought. I was doing everything I could do to say yes and make that happen.
Yes. I appreciate that.
I never, ever, ever gave it a single thought until I saw it. I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. Well, I didn't think of it. And so next time I'm going to think of it. And I think that's a really great illustration that I know it, I acknowledge it, I own it. And this is such a really fun, important part of me.
Yeah.
As it is to you. And wow, that's not what I projected. And I love this part of it. So it's a mistake. It's a fail. I did it. Can't change it. Gonna move on. I'll know much, much better the next time. And oof, man, I hope.
Well, you're, again, as the professional working with you, you're way harder on yourself. And I am the same way. I, revisit clips of myself or presentations or photos and say, oh, I should have done this better or done that better. But you're masters at your content. So that was number one. You looked fine, but it's a reminder for all of us. The digital.
Yes.
And this is what I do. When I'm ready to go on somewhere, I pull up the iPhone and flip the camera and say, from this view,
What does
it look
right.
like? Yeah.
That's great.
Does everything look, is the lighting is paramount in this world. And it's amazing. You know, I've got a ring light in the other office for all those times. What's the background when you're ready to do a Zoom? Because I'm telling you, many people are on the Zoom, especially if their camera's off, that you're just not thinking the caliber of people in this conversation. And the Zoom could be recorded. And maybe the company is going to host it. You know, maybe it was a webinar and it's going to be public. Well, then you really want to put your best virtual self.
Nothing to do with anything, but how funny is it that Zooms become Kleenex?
I know.
All right. I mean, because we're Microsoft Teams,
Yes.
because we're Microsoft everything. But I do, but it goes back to the root of, what did I want to say? I wanted to say yes. No matter what the day had, which it blew up,
right?
But I wanted to say yes, because saying no was not the right thing to say. And I believe that there are demonstrable differences between saying yes when you make it happen with a day of priorities, and so that undulation between, I really should say no, but this is such a big opportunity, I have to say yes. And then just didn't prepare for it. Literally sat in that chair from almost 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. And that's not good either. Yeah. But I think it's important to share those moments with our listeners, because I still have them frequently.
Well, and I've said yes way too many times to commitments or committees or organizations where I'm taking someone's seat. Someone probably was better capable to serve there. So in my desire when I was asked to say yes and to be helpful and not ever to let anyone down or disappoint them, in retrospect, I wasn't the best person.
That's an incredible
I was
insight.
Taking someone's seat that was better able to serve, or maybe had a new opportunity to be uplifted and to serve in a first-time position. We can't take all the seats. And it's a good reminder, while we want to be helpful to everybody, again, remember what your passion is. Bring it back down to, what do you care deeply about? You know, I care about a lot of things, but there's a lot of organizations that aren't my top 3. And as you know, Salvation Army is top of the top. And I gladly serve there, but we can't serve on everything. So we need to, saying no means someone else gets a chance to serve.
And you have to delineate where your passion is going to be the biggest fit. There's no question in the world that Crystal's passion is fitness. And to the extent she has dedicated the time she has to it, unequivocally, that's where her heart sings.
Yeah, totally.
So another compelling grit and gravitas. We're bumping up against the
with
time.
Annie Carnathan.
These 30 minutes go so fast. And again, please subscribe, download, share,
review.
Do whatever you can to help us help you. Whatever that looks like. Keep the comments coming. Ann and I are aligned in that every single comment we've gotten, we've answered. And I think that matters. We care. So until the next time, Ann Deeter Gallaher.
Have a high gear day. Thanks for listening. It's our desire that these stories will bring energy, ideas, and fresh thinking that you can use today. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram, and have a high gear day.